going to move to our second session, panel discussion. And here we're really going to cover the boom of running, what Sam highlighted at the top of the talk. And we're going to be hearing from leaders that are caring for and inspiring running communities. We're also going to hear about their relationship with event organisers. So please welcome Hamid, Jenny, Mohson, Tyler, and Jess.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks, Dom. Really appreciate you putting us after Jacko.
Right. Hard act to follow.
Appreciate it. So welcome everyone to this amazing panel. We've got some really inspirational people here who are community leaders in their own right. And today really we want to talk about and understand a bit more about the current running boom that we're seeing across the UK. From my perspective, I'm head of community engagement at London Marathon Events. My role focuses very much on how we support and engage communities across our event portfolio and really start to embed them into everything that we do. From my background in this space, I've been in the running industry for about 7 or 8 years now, and I remember back when I started working with LME on their community engagement strategy for the Big Half, and one of the key things was reaching out to existing running groups and communities and how we could start to engage them in our work. And actually back then, even 7 or 8 years ago, there weren't that many. There were a few really well-established groups. There was the likes of Run Them Crew and many others that are well known now, but there weren't a huge number that we see today. And I think now, when I kind of open up Instagram every day, there's a new run crew popping up, and yeah, it's just huge right now. So hopefully this panel will give you a bit more of an insight into the people on the ground doing the great work that they do, and really kind of understanding some of the barriers for people, the opportunities for event organisers and brands, but also kind of thinking about what's ahead of us in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about your group and how you came about to set it up. Tyler, do you want to go first?
Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Williams-Green, and I'm the founder of an organisation called the Outrunners. We are a East London-based charity. Growing up, I wasn't an active person at all. I found physical fitness very challenging, and I think probably at my heaviest, I reached like 21 stone. So I joined a running community called Run Them Crew. It was an amazing opportunity for me to see the power of movement through community. And what I decided to do was to set up an organisation called the Outrunners. We do loads of different things across East London. One of our main programmes, which we're working on at the moment, is a schools programme where we're aiming to get 1,000 young people from across various schools in East London moving. There are lots of barriers to movement in schools still. I think, PE lessons have dropped 12% since 2012, and only half of young people are meeting the daily expected kind of physical movement that they should be doing. So yeah, we do that for our schools programme. We have programmes which are embedded across various estates across East London, so in high levels of social deprivation. And we also have groups which are specifically aimed at getting women from ethnically diverse backgrounds into movement. So we do quite a lot. Got an amazing team. We've got Tanita here, who does a lot of the can't miss her. Who does a lot of the administrative stuff that we need to do. But yeah, that's just us in a bit of a nutshell.
Jenny.
Hello, I'm Jenny. I founded Runners and Stunners last July. I am a running content creator, an influencer, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm really good at talking to TikTok, but not so much. Not so much this. I'm very nervous. My running journey really started last April after a 3K run. I thought it was a really good idea to sign up to an ultra marathon, the logical next step. And I started sharing my whole journey online. So I was making videos about every run. I'd been creating content for about 6 years before, but no one ever watched it until this. So that was pretty cool. One thing I noticed when my account started to grow and I started to connect with more females on Instagram or TikTok is pace was the main thing people were reaching out to me about. You run at my pace. It's so nice to see someone run at this pace. I didn't actually know I was considered slow until Instagram told me. So that's good as well. And I didn't really know of a lot of run clubs in London. I was going to a really popular run club in London, and each time I was going, I got lost or just I just couldn't keep up. So I decided to host my own run. I never really had intention on this kind of happened by accident. I did one run club, we had about 8 people come. I just had such a good time, and so each weekend I've carried it on. Yeah, now at 8,500 members in London. We meet every Saturday. We're kind of like not focused around pace, so a lot of the girls that come are kind of like beginners. They just want to meet other girls in London as well, like have a bit of a coffee and a yap is the best way to put it. Yeah, and we've just recently we've opened a run club in Bristol as well. So we've been doing that for the past 4 months with goals of hoping to be in more places around the UK. Yeah, that's me.
So I'm Jess, I'm from Run Talk Run. I, like Tyler, was not an active child. I wasn't very active in my early 20s. Running was really inconsistent, shall we say. But I've always sort of struggled with my mental health. From my teenage years well into my 20s, I've struggled with depression. And in 2017, I found myself in a very bad place with depression. Really didn't want to be here. And running was, although inconsistent, the only thing that was softening the edges for that. It was the only thing sort of keeping me here. And my mum, thankfully, pushed me towards looking for some running communities in London. And back then, as Hamid was saying, there was Midnight Runners, there was Run Dem Crew, awesome communities. But they looked so extroverted and so fun. And I was severely depressed. I wasn't feeling fun at all. And I was like, gosh, this space isn't for me. I'm not going to be welcome there. They're all so smiley and so happy. So I thought, well, the running scene needs a more gentle space. I decided there needed to be a space where you could have a gentle 5K with no pressure on pace, where the purpose was about talking about how we're actually feeling, talking about the stuff that we don't want to bring to our friends and families. And so Run Talk Run was created from that. We did not have a quick start. It took about 6 months to get any traction with attendees because it's quite a hard sell. You know, come meet a stranger and talk about the bad stuff in life. But we are now 7 years in. We have over 100 groups running weekly across the UK, led by people with lived experience. So that's us in a nutshell.
I think I'm last. My name is Mohson. I'm the founder of Track and Core. We're at East London Run Community. We will be at the London Marathon Community Track this evening at 7 p.m. So if any of you want to get a running with me, you can. My running journey probably started many years ago when I slowed down DJing on the late nights. I got very frustrated with staying up late and being tired and hungover. And I swapped that for early mornings and park runs and the like. I think a few people have echoed and mentioned Run Dem Crew. I joined some communities, became the vice captain, and then stepped into the space of creating my own community. Since then, it's just sort of been a very explorative journey of where can we go. So I'm a UK Athletics qualified Lerf and Curve coach. I'm on the advisory board for London Marathon events and Hamid here in Sana. Yeah, just sort of trying to break down barriers and create a more equitable space for my members and for run organisers that are in this room. So yeah, a pleasure to have this conversation with you all.
Thank you, everyone. I guess the first question really is about what are the challenges that you faced in terms of setting up your communities and cultivating those communities? A lot of you have grown significantly. Jess, I know you're now almost global. Run Talk Run is global. Yeah, what has it taken to get to that stage, and what are the kind of key takeaways that you've experienced that have enabled you to get to that point?
A lot of sacrifice, be that time, your own finances. Yeah, I think going into it, like Jenny said, I didn't anticipate it growing to what it was going to grow to. It turned out there was a demand, so I wanted to meet it. But I had to leave my full-time job and take up some part-time work to make Run Talk Run work. I lost a relationship because my whole world became Run Talk Run. And yeah, I think that maybe isn't spoken about enough. Most people like us are doing it as passion projects alongside full-time work. and it requires more resource than just what the founder can give. So, yeah.
Definitely. And I think for me, you know, I sometimes look at where the Outrunners now, we've got like, you know, a team of over sort of 10 people on payroll, and I'm like, hang on, this just started off with me just running through Victoria Park with 2 people, and now I'm having to do like spreadsheets and HR, and I'm like, how the fuck did this happen? But, you know, I think through that transition, like I've had to, you know, take what was very much just like a voluntary organisation where people gave their time to it being quite structured, and, you know, that hasn't always been easy. You know, there's been struggles with people, you know, trying to bring people along on that journey, because I think with growth comes change. And yeah, I think that for me has probably been like one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, I think the same as well. Definitely time, especially in the beginning. I was working full time doing content and then kind of managing runners and stunners when it grew pretty fast. This is actually my old office. I'm lucky enough to be paid now like through content, so I do have a lot more time to put back into runners and stunners, but I don't necessarily make money from it, but it can be, you know, finding the right volunteers and the right leaders and pacers who obviously no one's ever going to be as passionate about it as me. I'm very precious on the pace thing if people are like sprinting off at the front. So it's about finding the right people to get involved and stuff, and obviously people are giving up their free time and stuff like that. And also when it comes to the community, because a lot of the girls are beginners, like helping them believe in themselves that they can go off and do races, and that just because they're not from an athletic background or super fast that they can still go off and do amazing things.
Yeah, just to echo some of the points, I think governance and structure is really key for small community groups. I think Tyler's mentioned I'm starting to do HR, and there's lots of things that go into it that you don't really think about. But I think what I've noticed is you have that very well-established system of UK Athletics structured clubs. They have a team of people who do different roles, and as a community, you just have to find your way. And I think over time you can build connections and just share and learn about knowledge. I've got 2 co-captains, I've paid for them to do their coaching. We've got more people who feel like they could maybe step into a role of taking on more responsibility. So to have people that come that don't really run much, or you know, they're concerned about pace groups or pace charts and they've not done marathons, to then come to the point where they've got some experience and skills that they can share to other people. It's been really invaluable. So it's trying to slowly grow, have some structure and governance, and still trying to be authentic to why you started your community in the first place.
And talking about growth then, I guess, you know, Jenny, you've spoken a lot about pace being a challenge for a lot of women in the groups that you work with, but thinking about kind of bringing new people into the sport and into your communities, how have you gone about doing that, and what are the kind of barriers that they face from the rest of the industry, I guess?
Can you come back to me on that?
Yeah, sure. So, Jess, what about you?
I think for Run Talk Run, in terms of trying to welcome more people into the space, it's like reiterating the same message over and over again, that we really don't care about pace. For us especially, we really don't care if you're not that chatty. We really don't care how you turn up to Run Talk Run. And we have to repeat that at almost like every stage of their journey, whether that's like an Instagram post, whether it's on Halo, which we use to list our runs. It's like reminding people constantly that they're welcome.
Yeah.
I think for us, and you know, when I first set up the initial group for the Outrunners, what I realised is that we were getting predominantly middle-class white runners, and I quickly established that we need to work with the long game here. So that's why, you know, we have various entry groups. So we've got a women which is specifically aimed at getting women into running, and it's like a 6-week structured program. You know, we have our youth programs which are embedded in different council estates and in schools, and you know, it's taken time, you know, because we've been around for doing our youth work programs for around 5 years. We now have some of our young people that are rocking up and running London Marathon at like the age of 18. It's like, I was not doing that at 18. I was, you know, but you know, it's taken time to, you know, have those groups which give access to various people, and then they can then join like the wider running community.
I was just, what Jess said, it's about repeating the same message. A lot of my community come from, like, they've found it through TikTok or Instagram, whether it be my page or the Runners and Stunners TikTok or whatever, and it's just making it look as friendly as possible on there. But I think, like, sometimes pace transparency is really good, because you might get someone who's might want to run walk, and we don't offer that right now. So it's so that they almost don't come and feel left out as well. So I think being completely transparent about that on social media, yeah.
Mohson, I know you've spoken previously with me about kind of some of the barriers that your community is facing. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we have such a broad mix of athletes that are chasing, you know, lofty goals and times. I've got a broad mix of members that are sadly unemployed and not working. So what does that mean for me as a founder? You know, I really want people to come and have the equity to share our space. So on a Thursday at the track, you know, begrudgingly I'll have to get the Monzo out, and I will have to pay for some other members, because I don't want them not to be able to share the lived experience of running because they can't afford the session. In terms of how we try and communicate how we structure sessions, we don't have any pace groups. It's all based on your ability and what effort levels you can put in for that day. We've noticed that we have a lot of runners that are injured or just not feeling in the mood to run, but they'll happily walk laps of the track and have that human connection. And I've had more recent conversations. I think a lot of our members maybe don't enjoy running, but they really enjoy human connection. And that's the powerful part of coming together every week. I think a lot of people maybe go on the training journey and feel like they have to have lofty goals of marathons or ultras. But I think for a lot of members, they really want that connection that's not there. I think there are a lot of runners that have maybe some mental health things that they need to deal with, or loneliness, which is quite key. My co-captain is late 40s, he said, "Thank you for this space." He's now co-captain. He said, "I found it really difficult to make friends at my age, so thank you for this space." And he repeatedly tells me every week, I'll get a text, "This is my favourite day of the week." Not sure if it's me or the running or the mix. But overall, it's just trying to create a safe space where you authentically lean into your values. We don't have lofty goals. We just try and be at that stadium every Thursday, 48 weeks of the year. We take December off. Completely echo what Jess has said. I've kind of come in and out of my relationship with my sort of passion for running and the commitment I give it. But over time, when I hear my members' stories of why they move, and I never thought I'd do a marathon, I can't believe I'm achieving things I've never done before or met these people, it's really, empowering to see human connection can be at the soul of what we do.
And the point around kind of everyone giving up their time and the effort it takes to build and cultivate these communities, I guess, from your perspectives, what do you think the industry can do better to support you, both now and longer term, to sustain what you're doing, but also to help that growth? Because let's be honest, you know, it's been a very successful year, as Sam said, for the industry as a whole. Events are selling out left, right, and centre. Everyone's doing really well financially. These guys are doing all the hard work and putting in the hard yards and giving up their time for free. Yeah, what do you think the industry can do to support better?
Yeah, I think, you know, we have worked with lots of different brands over the years, and we now have a partnership with the Nike Social Community Impact Team. And the way that partnership looks is it's extremely structured. You know, they support our schools program. You know, there are KPIs behind it. You know, we will work with a certain amount of young people, and it's very structured. And I think looking at how you can work with organizations in a structured way in their strategy for the next year, you know, I think a lot of brands, organizations, race providers can sometimes just be, you know, very tokenistic. That's just not helpful. It's like, if you really want to support, really look at how you can support over the long term and build, you know, a partnership which has a bit of back and forth, you know, and you can build that relationship.
Mohson, I'm looking at you. You've got some...
Looking at me. I think the thought I had earlier was, if everyone in the room who's a race organizer, your event is sold out a year in advance, what are your other KPIs other than the commercial part of what you do? If there isn't any, then there might be some opportunity for learnings and change. I think Tyler's mentioned the long-term work that he's got going with Nike, and I think the race entries for community members, that's just one part. But there's a whole load of work that everyone on this panel is doing to get people to the start line. That's the hard work, I think, from the talk earlier. It's really powerful that every person on your start line, yes, they might have paid for a bib or had a community entry, that's a human being and a story, and it definitely takes a village to get that person to the start line. And we definitely need to maybe consider the people that aren't in this room. There's lots of other run leaders, there's individual runners. There's probably someone out there today that hasn't found a community, so how are they going to get to the start line of your race thinking, am I represented? Is this for me? Can I afford this? So there's definitely some entry points that we could probably consider a bit more.
Yeah, I think a lot of, when I speak to my community, a big barrier is obviously cost. I think races have become quite a privileged, like a very privileged thing. Also, a lot of the girls think that, like, when they might look at, they're coming from social media, right? So they might look at social media and see, like, you know, a 6'2" man with an 8-pack and a pair of alpha flies, and that's what they think. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But they might think that that's what races are all about. And I also think, because I was looking at a few races on Instagram, like London landmarks the other day I was looking at, and there's like a lot of diversity, different body types, and also like, you know, a lot of people who be doing different finishing times. I think having that like on advertisements and social media, etc., because that's where they're coming from, on websites is like quite important, because it just makes them feel like, oh, okay, this person looks like me, or like they run at my pace, I can enter this, and it's not just going to be, you know, loads of really fast guys.
Go on, Tyler, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, so I was going to say, just something that I forgot to add. I also think it's about infrastructure. You know, for instance, LME has got a dedicated team which we can, you know, have an ongoing relationship with and talk about what we've got coming up, you know, throughout the year, and having that point of contact. So I also think it's incredibly important for race providers to make sure they're investing within those, like, you know, community setups within their own
organisations, absolutely. And Jess, I know your organisation, Run Talk Run, has now been kind of incubated into a charity. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and the impact that that's had in terms of?
Yeah, sure. I used to feel a bit of guilt talking about this, because I think as a founder you sort of like feel this responsibility to look after your community forever. But last year I actually passed over the reins of Run Talk Run to another mental health charity, which allows me to think a little bit more strategically about Run Talk Run. It's allowed me to be more creative with Run Talk Run without worrying about fundraising and bid writing and all these things that I'm not skilled at. So I think, yeah, there's a long journey when you're building a community to actually getting into that position where you can actually have that support from other people. But I like to share that now, because I think it's something we don't allow ourselves to think about. It's like stepping away from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, like you're all saying, you know, ultimately there's an element of responsibility and a duty probably on us to think about how we can better contribute to that broader infrastructure that supports the network of amazing communities that have been set up. I want to talk a little bit about some of your experiences with events more broadly, but kind of, yeah, what's your group's experiences with events? Positives, negatives, any highlights from this year? Anyone want to share?
Well, we're very new, so we haven't necessarily done like a lot of work with events in terms of like, 'cause a lot of the girls that come like are beginners, and a really good one for like a first race is run through, just like a 5K in a park. They find that one to be oh, hello.
There's a guy.
They find that one to be like the less intimidating one to go to straight away, and then they might move on to like bigger half marathons or marathons. You know, I think like everyone now seems to want to do like, you know, the 6 world majors and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, last year I'm a Hoka sponsored athlete. They wanted to put a program together for the Hackney Half, and we partnered with ProDirect. So we had a training plan from one of the elite athletes, Ellis Cross. He's a guy that famously beat Mo Farah in the race, so I had to be very mindful of trying to give our members that type of workout, because it was pushing it a little bit. But I think over the 6-month period we had some opportunity to try some shoes. We had this coaching plan, and a lot of our members really felt supported on that journey up until race day, and I think that's key. It's trying to really build in that storytelling arc of what do you want to achieve and how can you get people there. Sadly, I think the days of just the free entries to the race is not really going to cut it, and I think if you're looking at distances over 10K, you're doing a disservice to those people, because how are they going to get there? How are they supported? And one of the things that we have took very seriously is trying to have qualified coaches for UK Athletics, just so we can vaguely understand what we're talking about and try and ensure that we can keep our members safe and on the road, because as we probably have all experienced at one point, when runners have injuries or niggles and they can't move, it impacts their mental health and the people around them. And every week I have to have a conversation with my members about taking it easy, taking that one thing that we don't think is a superpower, but the rest day, So we just try and really make sure that we're trying to upskill and learn so we can support our members going forward and getting to the start of the race.
I think for us, we had an academy last year. We had 120 people from ethnically diverse backgrounds run London with the support, through community entries from LME. This year we're kind of tweaking that to kind of make it more in line with our charitable objectives. So we're going to have 90 women, first-time runners from ethnically diverse backgrounds run it. So I think it's really, really supporting to help us build out those strategic programs. Seeing some of our young people come through mile 21 last year was just literally in floods of tears, because it's just really exciting and just beautiful to see that journey. I think some races are better than others. I think I went to an interesting committee yesterday with the Hackney Half, which was really, really exciting to see that they're looking at how they can build better community partnerships. But I feel in Hackney at the moment, it's, a very gentrified area, and sometimes mass participation events can just really be the epitome of gentrification if you, see it as something which you're passive to and you can't be part of. So, yeah, I think there's amazing work happening, but there's still a lot more work to be done.
Jess?
Yeah, I think this year, actually, I had one of the best race experiences at Run Talk Run as a team, and that was at Threshold Endure 24. Are they in the room? And I think the reason behind that is because we were entering as a team. It really was suited to everyone's ability. Someone could run 5 miles and that was it if they wanted, or they could just keep running if they wanted. And it exposed our runners to, the solo ultra runners who were covering crazy distances, which was really inspiring. But it allowed us to hold each other's hands through the process. And at Run Talk Run, we're a nervous bunch. We kind of need that. So I think if you're turning up to a race alone for the first time, that's really scary for a lot of beginner runners. So the big takeaway I had from Endure was being able to go into it as a team and support each other through that process as a team.
Brilliant, that's really interesting. And I think, for most race organisers, there's probably a lot of things that resonate here. I think from our perspective, as an organiser that has a team that can work across the whole year, working with community organisations like yours throughout the year, as opposed to just in the lead up to events, is really helpful, because it means that we're kind of able to tap into the issues and the challenges that you're facing on the ground. Thinking ahead now to the future, what would you like to see more of within the industry? What would you like to see in terms of this growth? Is it here to stay? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if the growth will continue. I feel like everybody's running, which is amazing. You go through Victoria Park and it's like you're literally trying to just find some space to walk. But, I think with that growth also just needs to be accessibility, and I think, a lot of spaces for running are also becoming quite gentrified, and actually, that can be a barrier. Not every community group, which is also, that's setting up at the moment, are easily accessible to people and can sometimes be intimidating. Not everybody can afford a £5 flat white and a £6 pastry, to go for coffee. So it's just kind of community groups thinking more about how accessible they are to everybody. And I think, the wider running community thinking about how they can support these more grassroots organisations with their growth.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in terms of going forward, I hope it's here to stay because it's my job. But I do think as well, I think we're seeing with Gen Z as well, so many people are actually choosing actively not to drink now. I think I saw a stat on social media, 30% of Gen Z are actually choosing not to drink, and it's actually cool to them now to go and sign up to a half marathon and go out running. That's kind of how people are spending their weekends. My most recent run club in Bristol was literally just uni students, and when I was 21, I was absolutely hammered Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, but they're waking up and moving, which is really cool. But I definitely think more diversity, different body types, yeah.
Yeah, I think as like running culture evolves, there's almost like this feeling now, I don't know if people agree, that where there's almost like an eye roll every time a new run club is set up. Like this feeling that we've already got enough, but I don't think there will ever be enough run clubs. Like there is a different run club for whatever personality, especially in London now. Like there's a space for everyone, and I think that's an amazing thing. And I don't think all of these running communities have to grow to be big, massive things. It's okay if there is a small niche run club for a particular sort of person, because that is what people need sometimes.
Yeah, it's almost the beauty of it, isn't it? Something for everyone.
Yeah, interesting to think about, you know, people want to chase 6-star majors, there's the super halves. I can see maybe a trend of more gamification of races, but I think organisers could think about how can you work on that storytelling piece for your race, and how can you meaningfully impact with communities, a bit like what sort of Tyler mentioned earlier. So I think there's definitely opportunity to have long-term change with your events to see how you can get more people to your start line.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, there's something I forgot to add for maybe event organisers. So one of my leaders yesterday, which I thought was really interesting, one of the super halves, I think Copenhagen tickets came out yesterday. She queued for like 2.5 hours. But they, before and after, they sent like email communication, like, you know, we are seeing a boom. There's a big chance that you might not get a ticket. And I think having that transparency, like, leads to less disappointment, because we are seeing so many people. It's like Glastonbury tickets now to get a half marathon ticket, do you know, like,
Absolutely. You touched a minute ago on Gen Z, and I just wanted to ask Tyler, because you work you work with young people in schools as well. Just trying to understand kind of what the trends you're seeing in terms of, you know, running versus other sports, you know, team sports, football, basketball, the most popular sports amongst young people, generally speaking. How easy or difficult is it to try and get young people into running?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have our coaches, because I'm always told by young people that I'm old. So they're a bit younger and they go into it. But I think, you know, definitely it's really interesting, because I think we have just started to engage with TikTok a lot more, because they're just like not on Instagram. They don't want anything which is like, you know, left on social media. They just want it to like be like gone. So I think, you know, looking at what their trends are in terms of like social media platforms, but a lot of what we do is really gamify running to get them engaged. So, you know, in the beginning stages, it's very much around getting them to run without them knowing that they're running. And then, you know, we then get them to build, you know, up to a mile, and then we'll bring them to an event, and then that's when it tends to click. You know, I think, you know, you had a photograph of some of our young people that did the big mile. So giving them those experiences where they can see the power of community and the beauty of community and be cheered on. And for a lot of our young people, especially the ones which aren't necessarily doing well academically in school, like that's like a really, really empowering thing for them.
Amazing. Thank you all to our amazing panellists.